Let's bring in News Nation political contributor Denise Gitsham and Democratic strategist and founder of Oath, Brian Derrick. Good morning to both of you. Thanks so much for coming on. It's a busy weekend, guys. We've been talking about this for months. We're almost there. Brian, I'll start with you. We are seeing Harris pull out all the stops in Wisconsin. Cardi B was there last night. Barack Obama is going to be there on Sunday. How essential is this state for our vice president?
Wisconsin is definitely critical for Kamala Harris. We know that her most likely path to victory right now is in Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, otherwise known as the Blue Wall, where she's had a slight polling lead for the last several weeks and really since she launched her campaign. And so if she's able to bring it home in Wisconsin, which went to Joe Biden by less than a point in 2020, it will definitely increase her chances of the White House.
And Denise, we know women are outpacing men when it comes to early voting. This week, Trump made comments about being a protector of women, which the Harris team is now fundraising off of. That's a huge point for Democrats. He's also been slammed for the campaign rhetoric, of course, used against Liz Cheney. What's your advice to the campaign to change the narrative here?
You know, I've thought about this a lot. You know, as a woman, I've thought about how I would feel in response to it. And obviously, I have feelings about it. But what I've realized is that Donald Trump isn't talking to someone like me who's already decided. He's talking to the people that he feels like he can still move the needle on. And with regards to the Liz Cheney comment, I know that he was speaking specifically to those voters, the huge chunk of people who don't want to see America embroiled in foreign wars. So while we interpreted it through the lens of a Liz Cheney attack, he was actually messaging to people who fall under the RFK blanket, you know, of like independent voters who don't want America embroiled in ongoing forever wars abroad. And in regards to protector of women, you heard him just in the preview clip that you guys played. He was talking about protecting everyone. And a lot of us do want to be protected from migrant surges, from crime, from all sorts of high inflation. All Americans want to be protected from the things that this administration has thrust on us.
Brian, I'd love to hear your thoughts, as well as that gaffe by Biden this week with that garbage comment that he made.
Yeah, I think that the big headlines of the week have been around the Puerto Rico comment from the Madison Square Garden rally, around Liz Cheney comments, around Trump's refusal to actually engage with Nikki Haley and bring her into the fold. And so the big question right now is, can Trump get back on message, in these last few days in order to bring those independent voters back towards his side. It seems right now that they're breaking in Kamala Harris's direction, and she's made that a critical part of her closing message, that we had less divisive politics not that long ago, and we can turn the chapter right now on Tuesday in order to move forward as a country.
Denise, there's so much mudslinging from both sides, and this is coming as millions of voters are just starting to tune in and really focus on who they're going to vote for in the election. Does this ultimately detract all of those voters from making up their minds?
I don't see that happening at all. I mean, voter enthusiasm is through the roof on both sides of the aisle. I think if anything, people are sharpening their pencils and going into that ballot box ready to cast their vote. And this is the best part of America. Let's be honest. Whatever side you end up voting for, I mean, I know who I'm voting for, but I really love the fact that we live in a country where we can all get out there and play a role, a very important role in deciding the future of our country and who the leader of the free world will be. So I think it's fantastic to see so much early voting out there, and I hope it continues. If you haven't yet, you need to vote.
I can't stress that more. Go out there and vote. Let's talk about North Carolina, guys. Both candidates heading to the state today. It's a dead heat. Denise, Trump won North Carolina the last two cycles. I am going to stick with you right now. What are your thoughts on why the race is so close this time around in that state?
You know, it's interesting. That state is, I've studied it a lot. I've been there a lot. I've got to say, I feel like North Carolina is one of those states that's just beyond the reach of Democrats every single time. The last time it went for a Democrat was in 2008 for Obama. And I feel like it's kind of like Republicans are always reaching for certain states and they're just beyond their grasp, kind of like Nevada for Republicans. North Carolinians are increasingly social conservatives, is what I've seen just as a baseline, sort of their center set. And I've seen a lot of growth in the exurbs where there's a lot of manufacturing jobs. And most of those folks are working class folks that Donald Trump is squarely focused on earning the vote of. And so while we've got Mecklenburg County and we've got, Charlotte, what I've also read is that a lot of Democrats aren't seeing what they hoped for in '08, which got Obama over the finish line, which is a surge of voting. So there's a lot of time still. We've got time until Tuesday, but I don't think that this is a place that either candidate should be wasting their time. I think it's already decided for Trump.
All right, Brian, what opportunity does the Harris campaign see in North Carolina? Do you think she could turn it around?
Yeah, I would agree with the assessment that North Carolina seems to be perpetually just out of reach for Democrats. They have built a lot of infrastructure in the state over the last 4 years. There's a really young and energetic Democratic Party chair in North Carolina. I believe she's 25. And that's really changed how the party has approached getting out the vote there. I think that North Carolina is a must win for Trump on his path to 270, but Harris has several ways that she could get there without winning North Carolina in the end.
I am running out of time, but when we talk about early voting, many are saying that this time around we're seeing Republicans get out there earlier. However, no one's talking about the unaffiliated voter or the independent voter. Are those being counted in these early voting numbers that we're seeing? And do you think they could sway this on Tuesday, Denise?
Absolutely. I mean, look, I don't know of many people who are undecided in this election. Both of these candidates aren't necessarily polarizing, but they actually are galvanizing just a lot of support, which is a great thing for America. In regards to independents, I mean, they're Americans, and so even though they don't affiliate with one specific party or the other, I'm certain that they're just as motivated. So I don't really see, we don't have as much good information and tracking in regards to, I think parties aren't tracking them as well as they would their own voters. But I do think that they're going to get out there, and we're going to see no loss of enthusiasm amongst those third-party voters.
I do want to ask you about that, or Brian, because there are a lot of voters that just aren't very enthusiastic about either candidate. Do you think they'll actually come out by Tuesday and vote, Brian?
Yeah, we are expecting record high turnout. I know that Gallup just released a poll showing extremely high enthusiasm for both registered Democrats and registered Republicans. But even in this unaffiliated group that you're talking about, we're seeing record numbers and a huge number of new voters who did not vote in 2020. So I think that this group ultimately will be decisive which way they break, because as Denise said, we know that the base of each party are really fired up.
Denise Grace Gitsham, Brian Derrick, we've been on this journey together, guys. Thanks for coming on the show this Saturday morning.